Well, Manchester United deserve to win. But quite frankly, they were playing against the Rangers reserve team. And let's remember, this is a Rangers side that are in Scotland 13 points behind Celtic after 23 games. So Manchester United won the game. They deserve to win the game. But it wasn't the demolition that it really should have been. I mean, by the finish of the game, Rangers had a bunch of kids on. They had 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds coming on as subs. So it's a win. They're sitting comfortable in this table, but it really doesn't change an awful lot in terms of what...
Got to change a lot in terms of morale, boost of confidence for the players, no doubt, Ale.
Well, I think at this point, you'll take anything if you're Manchester United. Anything that makes you feel a whole lot better than what you were feeling like prior to this game. You had your manager in a press conference refer to you as the worst Manchester United team in the history of the club. That doesn't make you feel all that great. And so you're looking for things that get you excited to show up for training, that get you believing in what you're doing. I don't know how far this takes you down that path and takes you down that dream of actually believing the things that Ruben Amorim is saying, but it is far better than dropping points in this match. It's far better than losing this match. And look, we didn't show it, but Rangers had a couple of chances early on, and you're thinking, you got to be kidding me. This lesser version of Rangers is still giving Manchester United issues, but we shouldn't be surprised. Manchester United they're searching. And they're struggling to find that confidence. And to your point, this will go some other way. I wouldn't say a long way, but this will go some other way to restore some of that confidence.
And no broken TVs in the dressing room tonight either from Amorim, Mark?
We don't know yet. Maybe, maybe not. But listen, I'm sure they can afford to pay for a new one. Yeah, listen, it was one of those nights. It was a frustrating night for United because having taken the lead, they should have been pretty well clear, shouldn't they? They had, obviously, the Ligt goal was disallowed. They had a few chances in the second half. And I guess the issue right now is, do you persevere with Garnacho for a couple of years and hope that he turns into a world beater down the flying, or do you get rid of him now and bring in players that you actually need right now to make United much better than they are? And I think they're going to favour the latter.
Speaking about making United better, how has it gone down, Amorim's comments, Mark, about being the worst Manchester United in club history?
Well, he backtracked it a little bit, didn't he, his press conference yesterday, and I think he tried to say it was on him rather than the players. But listen, I've been told that the players aren't massively overjoyed by the fact that he said that, but then players do like to moan and whinge. I guess Stevie and Ali will attest to that. So they were never going to be happy about it. But I do think that, you know, it was an overreaction, wasn't it? They're not the worst Man United team we've ever seen. I think they're one of the worst, if not the worst in the Premier League era. They're not the worst United team we've ever seen. But I think that what Amorim has tapped into is that a lot of the United fans that I speak to are glad that he's saying these things. They think that they need to shake up the dressing room, they need to shake up the club. And he's been quite brutal, quite honest. And I think the fans like to hear that, but it depends what his audience is and what the message was for, who the message was for. I mean, personally, I think the message was designed to try and provoke a reaction from the players to say, are any of you strong enough to have a go? If you're saying that, yeah, are any of you going to pick me up and say that was out of order? So if that was the idea, I'm not sure he's had much of a reaction, because tonight was, 50-50, but he did backtrack it, so maybe he knows. The fact that he backtracked it yesterday suggests that he knows that he pressed the wrong button by saying it.
What I would say is that usually the players that need a message like this, when the manager puts it out into a public forum, those same players that really need this message are actually the players that are further away from actually grasping that message.
Don't get it.
No, he wasn't talking about me. He must have been talking about somebody else. That's how out of tune this message is, because if indeed you want to get this across to specific players, then you actually grab the specific players and you tell them directly. Because most of the time, those guys, they're going to say, well, he wasn't talking about me. He must have been talking about that guy.
As I said, I don't think this gives them a boost. It's a game they know they should have won. It's a game that they just managed to win. And so I think if anything, it just doesn't deflate them the way that losing recently on so many occasions has done.
Right now, when you take a look at the Premier League table, Manchester United, obviously in the bottom half of it, sitting in 13th right now. Mark, you just mentioned Garnacho and his future there. Where could he go? Where would he go?
Well, Chelsea seem to be the favourites right now. Napoli have held an interest in it, but Napoli are kind of looking elsewhere right now, and that could be applied to to get United to lower their asking price. There's a gap between what Napoli are prepared to pay and what United want. But Chelsea are interested, and I was kind of surprised at the Chelsea interest, but Chelsea's interest is because they feel they need an extra winger. And obviously the situation with Mudryk could be a problem, a prolonged problem if the drugs test that he's failed, it turns out to be positive. So, Chelsea need a winger. I'm surprised that United would let him go to Chelsea, but ultimately it's all about the money, and we know that United have got financial problems. They published a letter today where they responded to a fans group by saying that over the last 3 years they've lost £300 million, and they are really struggling to comply with PSR and FFP. So if they could sell Garnacho for maybe £45-50 million, which seems a little bit optimistic, he's a homegrown player, so that would be down as pure profit on the balance sheet. So they could spend that money straight away on reinforcement. So if they get £50 million in for the last week of the window, and they can bring in a left back, a forward, maybe even another midfielder, that would be good business. But the problem with United is, if they had £50 million to spend, do you trust them to spend it wisely? And recent windows suggest they haven't got the skill set behind the scenes to do that.
Mark, you're just mentioning there, obviously, about these financial issues right now. How is it that one of the, and we're not even just talking football clubs here, we're talking sports club, one of the most commercially successful clubs, finds himself in this position?
Listen, it's a crazy situation, and I ask that question all the time. I see the figures. I think there's some figures published by Deloitte today which suggested that the fourth most profitable club in world football, or they generate most revenue, fourth most revenue. So they're making lots of money. But over recent years, you see, obviously the pandemic was a problem, but they've had situations where they were paying the Glazers money in terms of dividends, and the Glazers charged the club to fund the process of selling the club for them or finding new buyers. So they overpay for players. A lot of fans may not know this, but when a football club buys a player, they don't pay the transfer fee straight away. They pay it over the course of the contract. So United have got 3 or 4 years of payments on players' contracts. It's like buying lots of cars. They're still paying for the cars in many respects. So they still owe over £300 million in kind of outstanding payments on players. That isn't just Man United. That is pretty much across the board in football. A lot of clubs do that. So it's basically stacking up of bad decisions off the pitch and on the pitch, financial mess, the debt the club's paying off. All these issues have come to haunt United. They're not earning as much money off the pitch commercially as they used to do, because they're not in the Champions League, they're not finishing high enough in the Premier League to earn lots of prize money. So there's lots of collective issues there, and it's just coming to a head now. And obviously Ineos and Sir Jim Ratcliffe are taking some pretty brutal decisions in terms of laying people off and cutting costs. So that's why they're in a situation they're in, where they're having to sell players that have come through the ranks.
Stephen, when we go to Alejandro Garnacho, you were saying today when we were talking about this player that he doesn't play with anyone. What do you mean by that?
Well, whenever he picks the ball, particularly in the final third, he only has one interest, and that is, can he score? Now, that might sound strange, because obviously if you're a forward, or you're supposed to be a forward, then it's about scoring goals. But you cannot keep doing the same thing, because he does the same thing time after time after time. Sometimes it comes off, generally it doesn't, but he keeps doing the same thing. And to me, I think he plays for himself. I think everything he does is about either I'm going to take somebody on and I'm going to try and get a shot, or if I make a pass, it's so I get it back. To me, he's not a team player. And if they can get 45 or 50 million for Garnacho, I think they absolutely take it. I think a young player like Garnacho is one of the problems that United have. Because Ali's talking about earlier about players saying, well, it's not me. I think that's where this kid falls into it. I think he's a little big for his boots. I don't see him progressing into a world-class forward. And so if they can get 45 million for him, or 50, I think you take it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and while I generally agree with what you're saying, Stevie, what I would say is that it says a lot about what the assessment is of Garnacho as a player from Manchester United perspective, if indeed they feel comfortable enough to allow a 20-year-old to walk out the door. A 20-year-old that has had some participation with this team and has had some experience with the first team and has scored important goals with the first team. And so, again, the evaluation of Garnacho, Stevie just talked as a player, but there's got to be an evaluation as to what he is, not only in the field, what is he in the training facility, what is he in terms of a personality within the group, how does he carry himself? And it's not atypical that a young player would think that the world owes him everything, and that indeed we should all be thankful that he's walking through that door. what concerns me about Manchester United is that I don't think they have enough of a presence and leadership in that locker room to say, let's harness the talent, let's nurture the talent, but let's teach them to be a professional that can actually grow in this environment and a 20-year-old that can be really impactful for us in the future. And since that presence is not there, that's when as a club you start saying, okay, we don't have the patience nor the time to wait for him to develop, and we don't know who are the players that are going to lead him in that direction. That's why I agree with you, Stevie, that if the money's out there, then see you later.
So Garnacho is one of the names that we're hearing in this transfer window. One of the other ones, Mark, has been Marcus Rashford. We've seen talk of him going to Barcelona. What more can you tell us about this chat?
Well, this might sound ridiculous that Marcus Rashford to Barcelona, but there is something in it, in the sense that Barcelona are interested if they can get Eric Garcia and Ansu Fati off the books. If they can loan them out and create some space on the wage bill, they would be interested in signing Marcus Rashford. Now, Marcus Rashford's camp have been made aware of this. I think that's why Marcus Rashford maybe foolishly turned down the chance to go to AC Milan, because I think Milan would have been a better move for him, would have played more often. I can't see where he plays at Barcelona. You know, Rafinha, Lewandowski, Lamine Yamal, he's not getting past those three, so he's going to Barcelona to sit on the bench, but it's Barcelona, and there is an interest there, and United would obviously like to get him out of the country rather than having him to the Premier League club where he could embarrass them. But it's a mess. You know, earlier this week, the signs from the Rashford camp that he would be happy to stay. He's training really hard, and he wants to get back in the team. I mean, he was on the bench again tonight, and it's been over a month now, so that's clear that if he's not gone by the end of the window, it gives Amorim a massive problem, because he's basically ignored him for a month. And if he's still there in February, then you've got a real problem. Do you kind of swallow your pride and bring you back in, and then, you know, rely on Marcus Rashford to find his form again, or do you just have to do all you can to get him out the door before the end of the window? But Barcelona need to get players out. As we know, they've got financial problems themselves, so they need to get players out to get Marcus Rashford in. So I think this one could really run to the final days of the window, because there's not really any other interest in Marcus Rashford. The one obvious one was Milan, and that's kind of closed the door now, because Kyle Walker has taken their one remaining English player slot.